Title: The Second Chance. The sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked pavement, the kind of heat that makes you question every life choice that led you to be outside. A young man sat slumped on his rusted bicycle, wiping sweat from his forehead with a dirty rag. His name was Marcus, and he lived in one of those forgotten neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago, where dreams came to die. Marcus's life had never been easy. His father died when he was just 10 years old, leaving behind nothing but debt and heartbreak. His mother, Sarah, was a frail woman whose health had been destroyed by years of working double shifts at the hospital laundry just to keep food on the table. But even with all her sacrifices, there were nights when they went to bed hungry. Marcus had dropped out of high school when he was 16. He told himself it was the right choice, that he could help his mother more by working full-time than by sitting in a classroom. So every single day, from sunrise to long after sunset, he pedaled his old bicycle through the streets, delivering groceries, packages, whatever people needed. The pay was terrible, barely enough to buy rice and beans. His stomach constantly ached from hunger, but he never complained. He never let his mother see the pain in his eyes. One sweltering afternoon, as Marcus was catching his breath near a busy intersection, he noticed an elderly woman sitting on the curb. Her clothes were torn and filthy, her face etched with a sadness so deep it seemed to have carved lines into her very soul. She held a small plastic bag in her trembling hands, and she was quietly begging passers-by for help. But nobody stopped. Nobody even looked at her. They walked past as if she were invisible. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. He stopped his bicycle and walked over to her. "Ma'am, are you okay? Can I help you?" The woman slowly lifted her head, and Marcus saw that her eyes were bloodshot and swollen from crying. "Son, I'm beyond help," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I've made mistakes so terrible that nothing can fix them now." Marcus sat down next to her on the hot concrete. "You're not alone. Tell me what happened. Maybe I can do something." The woman stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether she could trust this young stranger. Then, with tears streaming down her weathered face, she began to tell her story. Her name was Linda, and she hadn't always been homeless. Once upon a time, she had everything anyone could want. Her husband, Richard, was a successful businessman who owned a chain of hardware stores across Illinois. They lived in a beautiful house in Evanston with their 2 children, a daughter named Emma, and a son named Tyler. They had money, comfort, security, everything a family could dream of. But underneath the surface, cracks were forming. Richard came home one evening, looking exhausted and defeated. "Linda, we need to talk," he said quietly. "The business isn't doing well. We owe a lot of money to the banks. We might have to sell the house." Linda had laughed it off at first. They had always had money, so how bad could it really be? But as the months passed, things got worse, much worse. The debts piled up, creditors started calling at all hours, and Richard's stress began to consume him. One night, Richard sat Linda down and said the words she had been dreading. "We have to sell the house. There's no other way." Linda's heart shattered. She couldn't imagine losing their home, the place where her children had grown up, where all their memories lived. So in a moment of desperation and panic, she made a decision that would destroy everything. She secretly accessed Richard's business accounts and transferred a large sum of money into her own name. She told herself it was to protect the family, to save what they had. But when Richard discovered what she had done, his face went pale with shock and betrayal. "You stole from me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You destroyed my business. You destroyed us." Linda tried to explain, tried to make him understand that she had only been trying to save them, but Richard wouldn't listen. The trust was broken. "Get out," he said, his voice cold and final. "I never want to see you again. You've ruined everything." Linda begged him to forgive her. She begged her children to understand. But Richard turned Emma and Tyler against her, telling them that their mother had betrayed the family. Emma, who had once been her best friend, looked at her with nothing but disgust. Tyler wouldn't even speak to her. Within a week, Linda was on the streets with nothing but the clothes on her back. She had lost her home, her family, her dignity, everything that had ever mattered to her. For months, she wandered the streets of Chicago, sleeping in doorways, begging for change, crying herself to sleep every night under the stars. She replayed that terrible decision over and over in her mind, wishing desperately that she could take it back. But it was too late. Far too late. Marcus listened to Linda's story with tears in his own eyes. When she finished, he reached out and gently took her hand. Linda, I believe you can fix this. I believe your family can forgive you. Linda shook her head violently. No, Marcus. What I did was unforgivable. They'll never take me back. Marcus squeezed her hand tighter. Everyone makes mistakes, but the people who admit their mistakes and try to make things right, those are the people who deserve a second chance. You deserve a second chance. Something flickered in Linda's eyes, something that looked almost like hope. You really think so? Marcus nodded firmly. I know so, but you have to be strong. You have to be willing to face them and ask for forgiveness. That night, Marcus took Linda to his tiny apartment, the one he shared with his sick mother. Sarah looked surprised but didn't ask questions. She simply made Linda a cup of hot tea and gave her a blanket. Marcus spent the next several days trying to help Linda reconnect with her family. He tracked down Richard's address and went to speak with him. But Richard slammed the door in his face. I don't care what she told you, Richard shouted through the closed door. She betrayed us. She's dead to me. Marcus refused to give up. He suggested that Linda write a letter, pouring her heart out on paper. Linda agreed, and together they crafted a letter filled with raw honesty and genuine remorse. I know what I did was wrong, Linda wrote. I've been paying for it every single day. I'm so sorry. Please give me one more chance to prove that I've changed. I can't live without you and the kids. Marcus delivered the letter to Richard's house personally, but a few days later, he saw Richard throw the unopened envelope into the trash. Marcus's heart sank, but he couldn't bring himself to tell Linda the truth. Instead, he lied and told her that Richard was thinking about it. Linda's face lit up with fragile hope. Every day, she would walk to a spot near her old house, hoping to catch a glimpse of her children. But nobody ever came out to talk to her. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. Linda was standing across the street from the house when the front door opened and a teenage girl stepped out. It was Emma, now 16 years old, wearing her high school volleyball uniform. Linda's breath caught in her throat. She started to cry uncontrollably. Emma noticed her and walked over slowly, her face filled with confusion. Who are you? Linda wiped her tears with shaking hands. Emma, it's me. I'm your mother. Emma's expression hardened immediately. No, my mother left us. She didn't care about us. Linda felt like she'd been stabbed in the heart. Emma, please. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you so much. I've always loved you. Emma's eyes filled with tears too, but her voice remained cold. My dad told me what you did. You ruined everything. You made us lose the house, lose the business, lose our whole life. Linda reached out to hug her daughter, but Emma stepped back sharply. Don't touch me. Then she turned and ran back into the house, leaving Linda standing alone on the sidewalk, sobbing into her hands. That night, Linda returned to Marcus's apartment completely broken. It's over, she whispered. They'll never forgive me. I should just disappear. Marcus grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. Linda, listen to me. We're not giving up. Not yet. The next day, Marcus went back to Richard's house and knocked on the door with determination. When Richard answered, Marcus looked him straight in the eye. Richard, Linda is dying. She's sick, she's starving, and she's losing hope. If you don't talk to her soon, you might lose your chance forever. Richard's face went pale. He stood silent for a long moment, then finally spoke. Fine, I'll see her. One time. But this doesn't mean I forgive her. Marcus felt a surge of hope rush through him. He ran back and told Linda the news, and for the first time in months, he saw a real smile on her face. The next day, Marcus brought Linda to Richard's house. Her hands were trembling so badly, she could barely walk. When she stepped inside, she saw Richard standing in the living room with Emma and Tyler beside him. All three of them looked at her with expressions that were impossible to read. Linda's tears started flowing immediately. Richard spoke first, his voice hard and cold. You destroyed our family, Linda. You stole from me. You made us lose everything. Linda fell to her knees. I know what I did was wrong. I've been living with the guilt every single day. Please, Richard. Please forgive me. I can't live without you and the kids. Emma and Tyler glanced at their father, confusion and pain written all over their young faces. Richard stared at Linda for what felt like an eternity. Then he sighed deeply. If I give you another chance, you have to promise me you'll never betray us again. If you do, it's over forever. Linda nodded frantically, hope flooding her entire body. I promise. I swear I'll never hurt you again. Richard's expression softened just slightly. All right, you can stay, but you need to earn back our trust. Emma and Tyler looked shocked, but Emma slowly walked over to her mother. Mom, are you really going to change? Linda pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. Yes, baby. I promise I'm going to change. I love you so much. Tyler hesitated, then joined the embrace too. The family stood there together, crying and holding each other for the first time in months, but just when it seemed like everything was finally going to be okay, something unexpected happened. A few days after Linda moved back in, Richard pulled her aside with a serious expression on his face. Linda, I found something. Her heart started racing. What do you mean? Richard held up a bag filled with cash. This was hidden in the closet, the same amount that went missing from the business account. You said you spent all that money, but you kept it, didn't you? You lied to me again. Linda's face went white. No, Richard, that's not mine. I didn't touch that money. I don't know where it came from. Richard's face turned red with anger. You're lying again. You haven't changed at all. Linda grabbed his arm desperately. Richard, please believe me. I didn't take that money. Someone else must have put it there. Emma, who had been listening from the hallway, suddenly stepped forward. Dad, wait. I think Mom is telling the truth. Richard turned to his daughter in surprise. What are you talking about? Emma walked over and picked up the bag. She looked inside and pulled out a small piece of paper. Look, there's a name written on this. It's not Mom's name. Richard took the paper and read it carefully. His face went from anger to shock to shame in a matter of seconds. He looked at Linda, and his eyes filled with tears. Linda, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. Linda started crying again, but this time they were tears of relief. Richard pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for doubting you. From that moment on, everything truly began to change. Richard learned to trust Linda again. Emma and Tyler grew closer to their mother every single day. The family started healing together, slowly but surely. One evening, as Linda sat in the living room, watching her children laugh and play, she felt a deep sense of peace wash over her. Marcus came to visit, and Linda stood up to give him a long, heartfelt hug. Marcus, you saved my life. You gave me hope when I had none. I can never repay you. Marcus smiled warmly. You don't owe me anything, Linda. You did the hard work. You admitted your mistake and fought to make things right. That takes real courage. As Marcus left that night, Linda stood on the porch and looked up at the stars. She thought about how close she had come to losing everything forever, how one terrible decision had almost destroyed her entire life. But she also thought about forgiveness, about second chances, about the power of admitting when you're wrong and fighting to make things right. She whispered a quiet thank you to the universe and then went back inside to be with her family. Moral of the story: no mistake is too big to be forgiven if you have the courage to admit it and the strength to make things right. Second chances are real, but only if you're willing to fight for them with honesty and humility. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more inspiring stories that remind us we all deserve a chance at redemption.